This YouTube script, the Machiavellian brain, hack they don't want you to use. Listen carefully because what I'm about to share will make you dangerous. Not physically dangerous, but mentally untouchable. And the people who profit from your confusion, your distraction, your weakness, they absolutely don't want you to know this exists. Right now, as you're watching this, your brain is operating at maybe 20% of its actual capacity. Not because you're lazy. Not because you're not smart enough, but because you've been systematically trained to think like everyone else, to react instead of respond, to follow instead of lead. And here's the thing nobody tells you. That's not an accident. There's a reason school taught you to memorize dates instead of how to read people. There's a reason social media feeds you dopamine hits instead of deep knowledge. There's a reason you can spend 8 hours scrolling but can't focus for 8 minutes on something that actually matters. Your attention, your mental clarity, your ability to think independently, these are the most valuable resources in the modern world, and someone else is mining them while you sleep. But Machiavelli understood something 500 years ago that's more relevant today than ever. He said the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. He wasn't talking about animals. He was talking about your mind, the ability to see what others miss, and the courage to act on what you see. That's the game. That's always been the game. Now, before we go deeper, I need you to do something. Drop this phrase in the comments right now. I see the trap. Just those 4 words. Because if you can't even commit to typing 4 words, you're not ready for what comes next. This isn't motivation. This isn't a pep talk. This is a complete rewiring of how your brain processes reality. And it only works if you're willing to do the work. Here's what most people get wrong about intelligence. They think it's about knowing more facts, having a higher IQ, or being the smartest person in the room. That's not intelligence. That's trivia. Real intelligence is the ability to see patterns before they complete, to predict the next 3 moves while everyone else is still processing the last one, to walk into any situation, any conversation, any conflict, and know exactly how it ends before it even begins. Think about the last time someone manipulated you. Maybe a friend who always makes you feel guilty. Maybe a boss who dangles promotions but never delivers. Maybe a partner who knows exactly which buttons to push. You felt it happening, but you couldn't stop it. Why? Because they were playing a game you didn't even know existed. They had a map, and you were stumbling in the dark. That ends today. Because I'm going to show you the map. Not so you can manipulate others, although you'll absolutely have that ability, but so that manipulation becomes impossible to use against you. When you can see every move before it happens, when you understand the psychology behind every tactic, when your mind is so sharp that deception just bounces off, that's when you become truly free. Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513. 5 centuries later, his insights into human nature haven't changed, because human nature hasn't changed. We're still driven by the same fears, the same desires, the same predictable patterns. The only difference is now those patterns are being exploited at scale. Algorithms know you better than you know yourself. Corporations have entire departments dedicated to hijacking your decision-making. Even your friends and family unconsciously are running scripts they learned from their environment. But here's the beautiful part. Once you understand the code, you can rewrite it, not just for yourself, but for everything around you. You start seeing the matrix, the invisible forces that shape choices, manufacture consent, and keep people trapped in predictable loops. And when you see it, you can't unsee it. Your brain literally starts operating on a different frequency. The people who control narratives, who shape markets, who influence millions, they're not superhuman. They're not born with special gifts. They simply understand principles that you're about to learn. They've trained their minds to operate at a level most people don't even know exists. And the moment you understand these principles, the moment you implement them consistently, you join that top 1% of thinkers who see the world as it actually is, not as you've been told it is. I call this framework the strategic mind protocol. It's not one technique. It's a complete system based on 5 core pillars that compound into something unstoppable. Each pillar builds on the last. Skip one and the whole structure collapses. Master all 5 and you become cognitively untouchable. Let me break down exactly what that means. The first pillar is pattern recognition mastery. Most people move through life reacting to individual events as if they're isolated. Someone cuts them off in traffic, they get angry. A coworker makes a snide comment, they get defensive. A relationship ends, they get depressed. They're treating symptoms while completely missing the disease. Everything, and I mean everything, is part of a pattern. Human behavior isn't random, it's recursive. People repeat the same strategies, the same mistakes, the same emotional loops over and over and over. Your job is to stop reacting to the surface and start seeing the structure underneath. When someone gets angry at you, that's not the event, that's the output. The real question is, what pattern led to that output? What need isn't being met? What fear is being triggered? What past experience is being replayed in the present? Once you start asking these questions, people become predictable. Not in a cynical way, in an accurate way. Here's a practical drill. For the next 7 days, every single interaction you have, ask yourself, what pattern is this? Your boss micromanages you. Pattern. Need for control stemming from insecurity. Your friend always cancels plans last minute. Pattern. Fear of commitment or low self-worth. Your partner picks fights before important events. Pattern. Anxiety displacement. You start cataloging these patterns like a scientist. No judgment, just data. Within a week, you'll start predicting behavior with scary accuracy. Within a month, you'll be orchestrating outcomes by understanding which patterns to activate and which to avoid. But here's where it gets even more powerful. You apply the same lens to yourself. Most people are completely blind to their own patterns. They think they're making free choices when really they're running the same script their parents ran, their culture programmed, their trauma installed. You have to become your own observer. Notice when you're about to react the same way you always react. Catch yourself mid-pattern and choose something different. This is how you break free from your own conditioning. Let me give you a concrete example. There's probably someone in your life right now who consistently gets what they want from you. Maybe they use guilt. Maybe they use flattery. Maybe they create urgency or scarcity. Whatever their method, it works. Why? Because they've identified your pattern and they're exploiting it. They know if they act hurt, you'll apologize even when you did nothing wrong. They know if they praise you first, you'll agree to their request. They know if they make you feel special, you'll overlook red flags. The moment you recognize this pattern, their power evaporates. You see the setup before the trap closes. You feel the emotional manipulation starting, and you simply don't engage with it. You become immune, not because you've built walls, but because you've built awareness. And awareness is the ultimate defense. Now extend this outward. Watch how marketing works. Notice how politicians speak. Observe how social dynamics play out at work, at parties, in online spaces. Everything is patterns repeating at different scales. The person who can see these patterns has predictive power. They know what's coming next because they've seen this movie before. They can navigate complex social situations effortlessly because they understand the underlying code. This is what separates strategic thinkers from reactive ones. Reactive people respond to what just happened. Strategic people respond to what's about to happen. They're living 3 steps ahead because they've pattern matched the current situation to dozens of similar situations they've studied. Their response isn't spontaneous. It's informed by a database of human behavior they've been building their entire life. Start building yours today. Carry a small notebook or use your phone. Every time you notice a behavioral pattern, write it down. Person, situation, pattern, outcome. Do this for 30 days and you'll have a reference library more valuable than any business degree. You'll understand human nature at a level that gives you leverage in every interaction. But pattern recognition alone isn't enough. Because knowing what's coming doesn't help if you can't handle the pressure when it arrives. That's where the second pillar comes in. The second pillar is cognitive stress inoculation. Your brain right now is soft. Not because you're weak, but because you've been living in a comfort bubble. Every time something gets difficult, you have an escape route. Phone feels boring, scroll social media. Conversation gets awkward, check messages. Task feels hard, take a break. Your brain has learned that discomfort equals quit. And that's exactly what keeps you controllable. Think about this. The people who run the world, the ones making decisions that affect millions, do you think they fold under pressure? Do you think they panic when things get chaotic? No. They've systematically trained their minds to stay clear when everyone else is losing it. That's not a genetic gift. That's a skill. And you can build it. Here's how. You deliberately expose yourself to controlled stress until your baseline for what's manageable expands. Start small. Set a timer for 25 minutes and work on one difficult task with zero distractions. No phone, no music, no tabs open. Just you and the resistance. Your brain will scream for an escape. Let it scream. Observe the discomfort without obeying it. When the timer ends, note how you feel. That's your current threshold. Do this daily and increase the difficulty. Add time pressure. Add higher stakes. Add complexity. Have difficult conversations you've been avoiding. Take on projects slightly above your skill level. Put yourself in situations where you might fail publicly. Every time you push through discomfort instead of around it, you're rewiring your neural pathways. Your amygdala, the part of your brain that triggers fight or flight, starts to realize that stress isn't danger. It's just information. The key is progressive overload. Same principle as building muscle. You lift slightly more than you can comfortably handle. Rest, adapt, then lift more. With your brain, you tackle slightly more complex problems than feel comfortable. Process the experience, adapt, then increase complexity. Most people never progress because they never push past their comfort zone consistently enough to trigger adaptation. Here's a specific protocol. Week 1. Do focused work for 25 minutes daily. Week 2, 35 minutes. Week 3, 45 minutes. Week 4, add a second session. Week 5, make one session on a high-pressure task with real consequences. Week 6, have one difficult conversation you've been postponing. By week 8, you're combining multiple stressors simultaneously and handling them with clarity that would have been impossible 2 months ago. Within 3 weeks of consistent practice, you'll notice something incredible. Situations that used to make you anxious now feel manageable. Conflicts that used to derail you now feel like puzzles to solve. Pressure that used to make you freeze now actually sharpens your focus. This is the cognitive stress inoculation effect. You've upgraded your operating system to handle higher loads without crashing. But here's the part nobody tells you. This process will be uncomfortable. There will be days you want to quit. Days where you think this isn't working. Days where going back to distraction feels so much easier. That's the test. The people who break through are the ones who keep going when it stops feeling good. Because growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the gap between what you can currently handle and what you're forcing yourself to handle. Machiavelli understood this principle deeply. He said we must bear in mind that there is nothing more difficult and dangerous or more doubtful of success than an attempt to introduce a new order of things. He was talking about political reform, but the principle applies to personal transformation. Changing your neural pathways, upgrading your stress tolerance, rewiring your default responses, this is introducing a new order to your mind. And your mind will resist because the old order is comfortable, predictable, safe. Your job is to override that resistance, not with willpower, that's finite, but with structure. Make stress exposure non-negotiable. Schedule it like you schedule meetings. Treat it like brushing your teeth. It's not optional, it's maintenance. Now drop this in the comments. I choose discomfort. Because if you really understand what I just explained, those 3 words should resonate in your bones. The third pillar is decision velocity. Here's a truth that will change everything. Most people don't fail because they make bad decisions. They fail because they don't make decisions at all. They get paralyzed by options. They overthink until the opportunity passes. They wait for perfect information that never comes. And while they're waiting, someone else with half their talent and twice their speed takes the win. Machiavelli said it perfectly. The man who hesitates is lost. He didn't mean be reckless. He meant that in any situation of uncertainty, action beats analysis. Because when you act, you get feedback. When you hesitate, you get nothing. Feedback, even from a wrong decision, teaches you more than perfect planning ever could. Think about the most successful people you know. They don't always make the best choices, but they make fast choices. They gather just enough information to hit 70% confidence, then they move. And if it doesn't work, they adjust immediately. They're not smarter than you. They're just operating at higher speed. And speed, in a world where windows of opportunity close in hours, not years, is everything. The problem is, your brain has been trained to avoid mistakes at all costs. School punished you for wrong answers. Parents scolded you for bad choices. Society judges you for failures. So you've developed decision paralysis as a defense mechanism. If you never decide, you never fail. But you also never succeed. You're stuck in perpetual analysis, waiting for certainty in a world that offers none. Here's how you build decision velocity. Start with low-stakes choices. Restaurant menu, pick in under 30 seconds. Email response, write and send in under 5 minutes. Weekend plans, commit in under 2 minutes. Train your brain to process, decide, and execute without the endless deliberation loop. You'll make some suboptimal choices. That's the point. You're teaching your system that imperfect action beats perfect inaction. Set artificial time constraints on everything. Give yourself 2 minutes to respond to a message, 5 minutes to make a purchase decision under $50, 10 minutes to decide on a meeting request, 30 minutes to commit to a project. These constraints force your brain to prioritize the information that actually matters and ignore the noise. Then scale up. Career decisions, relationship decisions, investment decisions. Use the same framework. Define your criteria. What are the 3 things that matter most in this decision? Gather minimum viable information. What do I need to know to hit 70% confidence? Make the call. Choose and commit fully. Adjust based on results. What feedback am I getting? And what does it tell me about my next move? What you'll discover is that most decisions are reversible. The ones that aren't, you'll naturally slow down for. But 90% of what you're overthinking doesn't actually matter in a year. That job you're agonizing over? In 3 years, you'll probably have moved on regardless. That relationship you're analyzing to death? Either it works or it doesn't, and you'll only know by trying. The compound effect of this is insane. While others are still debating their next move, you've already made 3 moves, learned from 2 mistakes, and are executing the winning strategy. You're literally living at a different speed. And in a competitive landscape, speed is leverage. The fast don't just beat the slow. They make the slow irrelevant. But here's the advanced technique. Learn to recognize which decisions actually matter. Most choices are low impact. Which shirt to wear, which route to take, which coffee to order. These are noise. Don't waste cognitive energy on them. Automate or randomize them. High-impact decisions are rare. Choosing a partner, choosing a career path, choosing where to live. These deserve more time, but still not infinite time. Even for high-impact decisions, the 70% rule applies. Create a decision framework you can apply consistently. For me, it's 3 questions. Does this align with my long-term goals? What's the worst realistic outcome, and can I handle it? What's the opportunity cost of not deciding? If the answers are yes, yes, and high, I move immediately. This framework saves hundreds of hours of overthinking. Another key element is killing bad decisions fast. The moment you realize you made the wrong call, pivot. Don't fall victim to sunk cost fallacy. Don't keep investing in a mistake because you've already invested so much. The ability to say this isn't working and change direction immediately is just as important as the ability to decide quickly in the first place. 4th pillar, strategic opacity. This is where most people completely miss the game. They think authenticity means sharing everything, being an open book, letting everyone know their plans, their thoughts, their next move. That's not authenticity. That's vulnerability without protection. And in a world where information is power, you just gave all your power away. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He advised leaders to appear one way while being another, not to deceive maliciously, but because perception shapes reality more than reality does. If your enemies think you're weak, they attack. If they think you're strong, they negotiate. The truth of your strength matters less than their belief about it. Now, I'm not saying lie. I'm saying be selective, strategically ambiguous. Give people enough to form an impression, but never the full picture. When someone asks about your plans, share 10%. When someone probes your weaknesses, redirect to strengths. When someone tries to predict you, occasionally do exactly what they don't expect. Here's why this matters. Predictable people are controllable people. If I know exactly how you'll react to pressure, I can manufacture that pressure to get what I want. If I know your goals, I can block them. If I know your fears, I can exploit them. But if you're strategically opaque, if there's always a question mark around what you're thinking and planning, people can't pin you down. They can't build a strategy around you. They're forced to react to you instead of the other way around. Think about poker. The best players don't show their cards until the game demands it. They maintain ambiguity. They vary their behavior so you can't tell if they're bluffing or holding a royal flush. They give false tells occasionally to throw you off. And by the time you figure out their strategy, they've already adapted to a new one. That's strategic opacity in action. Practice this immediately. Next conversation you have, notice how much you volunteer. Notice your urge to fill silence with explanation. Notice how quickly you reveal your position before understanding theirs. Then, practice restraint. Ask more questions than you answer. Listen twice as much as you speak. Share outcomes, not processes. Let people wonder. Let them guess. Let them underestimate. The beauty of strategic opacity is it makes your actual moves hit harder. When people don't see you coming, when your capabilities exceed their expectations, when you've been operating in silence while they've been talking, you dominate the field before they even realize the game started. Here's a tactical framework. Divide information into 3 categories: public, private, and secret. Public information is what anyone can know. Your job title, general interests, surface-level personality. Private information is what trusted people can know. Your goals, your struggles, your real opinions. Secret information is what almost no one can know. Your strategies, your next moves, your actual capabilities. Most people put everything in the public or private category. They overshare constantly. The strategic mind keeps most information in private or secret categories and is extremely selective about what gets shared and with whom. Before revealing anything, ask yourself, does this person need to know this? What advantage do they gain from knowing? What advantage do I lose by sharing? The most powerful application of strategic opacity is in negotiation. Never reveal your true position first. Never show how much you want something. Never expose your deadline or your alternatives. The person with more information has more power. So you gather information while revealing as little as possible. You ask open-ended questions. You listen for what they're not saying. You observe their tells. And you keep your own cards close until the exact moment revealing them gives you maximum advantage. Now type this in the comments. My silence is my strategy. Own it. 5th and final pillar, emotional sovereignty. This is the one that separates students from masters. Everything I've taught you so far becomes useless if you can't control your own emotional state. Because the moment you let anger, fear, anxiety, or ego make your decisions, you're back to being reactive. You're back to being predictable. You're back to being controlled. Most people are emotional puppets. Pull the right string and they dance. Trigger their insecurity and they overcompensate. Threaten their status and they lash out. Give them validation and they comply. They don't even realize it's happening. They think they're choosing their reactions, when really their reactions are choosing them. Emotional sovereignty means you decide what you feel and when you feel it. Not suppressing emotions, that's just delayed explosion, but creating space between stimulus and response. Someone insults you. Instead of instant anger, you pause. You observe the insult. You consider the source. You choose whether this deserves your energy. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. This requires brutal self-awareness. You have to know your triggers. What makes you defensive? What makes you seek approval? What makes you act against your own interests? Write them down, all of them. Then commit to catching yourself in real time. The moment you feel that familiar surge, that emotional hijack starting, you name it. That's ego. That's fear. That's childhood wound. Naming it gives you distance. Distance gives you choice. Start with micro practices. When someone cuts you off in traffic, notice the anger rising. Don't act on it. Just observe it. Feel it in your body. Watch it peak and then naturally subside. You're training your nervous system that emotions are temporary states, not commands. When someone criticizes you at work, notice the defensive reaction forming. Don't defend. Pause. Ask yourself if the criticism has merit. If yes, extract the lesson. If no, discard it. Either way, you're responding from choice, not reflex. Build this muscle daily. Meditation isn't optional here. You need a practice that builds the observer muscle. 10 minutes a day minimum. Watch your thoughts. Watch your feelings. Watch them arise and dissolve without grabbing onto them. This one habit will give you more control than 1,000 motivation videos. But here's the advanced move. You don't just control your emotions, you deploy them strategically. Show anger when it serves your goals, not when you feel it. Show vulnerability when it builds trust, not because you need comfort. Show confidence even when uncertain. Your emotional display becomes a tool, not a leak. This is what elite negotiators, top leaders, and master strategists all understand. Emotions are data and weapons, not identities. Let me give you a practical example. You're in a negotiation. The other side makes a lowball offer designed to trigger frustration and get you to concede. Most people take the bait. They get offended, get defensive, or get desperate to close the deal. The emotionally sovereign person recognizes the tactic. They feel the frustration rising but don't act on it. Instead, they pause, smile, and calmly present their counteroffer. They've just demonstrated that emotional manipulation doesn't work on them. The power dynamic shifts immediately. Train this daily. Put yourself in situations that typically trigger emotional reactions, then practice not reacting. Difficult conversations, stressful environments, conflicts, criticisms. Each time you successfully create space between trigger and response, you're strengthening your emotional sovereignty. Each time you choose your response, instead of defaulting to your reaction, you're rewiring your brain. When you achieve emotional sovereignty, manipulation becomes nearly impossible. Because manipulators target emotions. That's the exploit. They push your buttons to get predictable reactions. But if your buttons don't work anymore, if you can stand in the middle of chaos with a clear mind, making calculated moves while everyone else is emotionally compromised, you're operating at a completely different level. Machiavelli said, "He who becomes master of himself will be master of others." This is the core truth. You cannot influence others effectively if you can't influence yourself first. You cannot lead if you're being led by your emotions. You cannot think strategically if feelings are making your decisions. Self-mastery is the foundation of everything else. Now let me bring this all together, because here's where the real power compounds. These 5 pillars: pattern recognition, stress inoculation, decision velocity, strategic opacity, and emotional sovereignty. They're not separate skills. They're one integrated system. When you master pattern recognition, you make faster decisions because you've seen this before. When you have stress inoculation, you maintain emotional sovereignty under pressure. When you're strategically opaque, people can't predict your patterns. It all feeds into itself, creating a cognitive advantage that grows exponentially. And here's what nobody tells you about cognitive advantage. It's invisible. Physical strength, people can see. Wealth, people can measure. But mental dominance, people just know something's different. They can't quite articulate it. You seem calmer, more certain, less affected by the things that shake everyone else. You make moves they don't understand, until 3 steps later when, suddenly, everything clicks into place. Let me show you real-world application. Negotiating salary. Most people walk in hoping for the best. They reveal their current salary. They show how much they want the job. They accept the first offer. The strategic thinker does the opposite. They've researched market rates thoroughly. They know their walkaway number. They let the employer name a figure first. They create strategic opacity about their other options. They demonstrate value without appearing desperate. They use decision velocity to accept or counter quickly, showing confidence. Result? They get significantly better offers because they controlled the information asymmetry. Dealing with a difficult coworker. Most people either avoid conflict or escalate it. Neither works long-term. The strategic thinker uses pattern recognition first. Why is this person difficult? What pattern are they running? Usually it's insecurity, desire for control, or unmet needs. Once you identify the pattern, you stop taking it personally. It's not about you, it's about their script. Then you use emotional sovereignty. You don't react to provocations. You remain calm and professional. You use strategic opacity. You don't reveal how much they're affecting you. Result? The difficult person either improves their behavior because their tactics don't work on you, or they eventually move on to easier targets. Making a major life decision. Move cities, change careers, end a relationship. Most people agonize for months, paralyzed by fear of the wrong choice. The strategic thinker uses the framework. Pattern recognition. Have I seen this situation before? What were the outcomes? Stress inoculation. I can handle either outcome. Decision velocity. Gather key information. Hit 70% confidence. Decide. Strategic opacity. I don't need to justify my decision to everyone. Emotional sovereignty. I'm not making this from fear or ego. Result? They make the decision weeks or months faster, implement immediately, and adjust based on real feedback rather than imagined scenarios. These aren't theoretical scenarios. This is daily life. Every single day presents dozens of micro opportunities to apply these principles. Each time you apply them, you get sharper. Each time you ignore them, you reinforce old patterns. The cumulative effect over a year. Astronomical. You become an entirely different player in an entirely different game. Now here's your challenge, and I need you to really hear this. Everything I just laid out is useless unless you implement it. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now. Today. This moment. Because information without execution is just entertainment. You'll watch this video, feel inspired for 20 minutes, then scroll to the next thing, and nothing changes. Don't be that person. Pick one pillar. Just one. Commit to it for 14 days with obsessive focus. If you choose pattern recognition, catalog every interaction. If you choose stress inoculation, do the uncomfortable task daily. If you choose decision velocity, set a timer on every choice. If you choose strategic opacity, practice restraint in every conversation. If you choose emotional sovereignty, meditate every single morning. 14 days of consistent practice will show you results that 14 months of casual interest never will. Your brain will start operating differently. You'll notice things you never saw before. You'll handle situations you used to avoid. People will respond to you differently without knowing why. That's when you add the second pillar, then the third. Within 90 days of dedicated implementation, you'll be cognitively unrecognizable from who you are right now. But I'm going to be honest with you. Most people watching this won't do it. They'll agree with everything. They'll feel motivated. They'll think, yeah, I should definitely work on this. Then they'll close this video and return to the exact patterns that keep them stuck. They'll choose the comfort of familiar weakness over the discomfort of unfamiliar strength. Don't be most people. The world is not kind to the mentally weak. It's not fair to the distracted. It's not patient with the indecisive. The game is being played whether you participate or not. The only question is, are you a piece or a player? And if you're still watching, if you made it this far, you already know which one you need to be. Here's what separates the people who transform from the people who just consume content. Action. Immediate, imperfect action. You don't need to master everything before you start. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need perfect conditions. You need to pick one thing from what you just learned and do it today. And here's what happens when you do. Within the first week, you'll notice increased awareness. Things that used to slip past you now register. Patterns you never saw before become obvious. Your internal state becomes more observable. This is your brain waking up. Week 2, you'll notice increased control. The gap between trigger and response widens. You catch yourself before reacting. You choose actions that used to be automatic. This is your executive function strengthening. Week 3, things start feeling natural. The practices that required conscious effort now flow easier. Your baseline anxiety drops because you're handling more complexity with less stress. People start noticing something different about you, even if they can't name what it is. Week 4, you hit the first plateau. Progress feels slower. The newness wears off. This is where most people quit. Don't. This is consolidation. Your brain is integrating everything you've installed. Push through this phase, and you'll break through to a new level. By week 6, if you've stayed consistent, the changes become undeniable. You're operating at a noticeably higher cognitive level. Decisions that used to take days now take hours. Situations that used to overwhelm you now feel manageable. You're reading people with accuracy that surprises you. And the compound effect is just beginning. Machiavelli's final lesson: it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But he wasn't talking about tyranny. He was talking about respect. When you master your mind, when you become strategically untouchable, when people realize they can neither predict nor manipulate you, they respect you. Not because you're cruel, but because you're competent. And competence in a world of chaos is the rarest and most valuable currency. So here's what happens next. You make a choice right now. You either commit to becoming the person I just described, or you stay exactly where you are. Both paths are valid. But only one leads to the life you actually want. Only one gives you agency over your circumstances instead of being victim to them. If you're ready to commit, drop this final statement in the comments. I control my reality. Then like this video so it reaches other people ready for this information. Subscribe because we go even deeper in future content. And share this with one person who needs to hear it. Not 10 people. 1. Someone you know is ready to level up. Your mind is the only territory you'll ever fully control. Master it and everything else becomes manageable. Ignore it and everything else controls you. The choice has always been yours. Now you just have the framework to make it permanent. The game starts now.